But look, it's a continuous content we always bring you. And we told you that the resignation of the TOR MD, that's the Tema Refinery Managing Director, has been accepted by the President. And this was confirmed in a statement issued by the Director of Communications at the Presidency, Eugene Ahin, who said the President had taken receipt of that resignation letter. Subsequently, would duly inform the board and wished the former managing director well. And the man in the picture is Mr. Asante Berko. But it is because he's at a center of a bribery allegation. The Security and Exchange Commission of the United States of America, following an investigation into an energy contract that was given to a Turkish company right here in Ghana between the years of 2015 and 2016, had concluded that Mr. Asante Berko was the focal point for transferring illegally money into Ghana for alleged bribery of members of parliament and then other government officials who were very key to the approval of that energy contract. Of course, we know what the Minority Chief Whip had said about investigation that needed to be done, whether monies had been received, because at the time he was a member of the Security Committee. But look, we'll bring you all the updates, because just on Wednesday we brought you all an update from anti-corruption campaigner Dem Senanu, who indeed had called for consistent action to be taken by the presidency on the subject, especially involving the personality of Mr. Asante Berko. Now, we bring him back on stream. Good morning to you, Mr. Dem Senanu. Now, if you look at how things have unfolded over the last 12 hours, what will be your own conclusions based on your observations?
It's the right decision, step in the right direction, but it should not preclude a full-blown investigation as to what has transpired, because the reputational damage has been really bad. So we need to establish the facts. We need to engage the U.S. government, get the evidence that's available to them, and do our own investigation and draw a conclusion. So I'm expecting the presidency to go a step further.
And what step would you want the presidency to? Well,
it should be assigned. This would comfortably fall into the ambit of the special prosecutor. I think that for consistency's sake, that would be a good place to send it to. And I think that the sooner it is done, the better. It's good that Mr. Asante Berko has resigned, but one needs to have clarity as to what transpired, who was involved. Do we still have some of them in government who benefited? Because, you know, at the end of the day, whatever they paid out is money that the good people of Ghana are paying back through whatever is being paid to this Turkish company for the provision of energy. So it's not come cheap.
Mr. Senanu, this is Mama V. I just wanted to remind you that these still remain allegations. You're almost sounding like this is something, you know, the allegations coming out is actually something that is factual. This is coming out of a judgment, but it still remain allegation.
Well, I don't know which part of my response to you makes you think that I am saying there's anything other than allegation.
Okay.
I am saying that the investigation, a full-blown one, must happen. We must establish if any of those are alleged to have received sums of money are in government. And you can be sure that once such monies were paid out, the good people of Ghana are paying back.
So I was just thinking, shouldn't we rather wait for the U.S. to finish its investigations, the Securities Exchange to finish its investigations? Then we will know that something in actual fact has happened before we investigate in Ghana.
No, the documentation already provided says that these monies were made available, were channeled for these purposes. The documentation and evidence available has stated that this was the purpose They had a budget of up to about $4.5 million. They are setting at least 2.5 million of that, and the purpose of it was to bribe officials to make it easier for this Turkish company to get this contract. So the evidence already provided on which basis that Mr. Asante Berko was listening before a court in the U.S. was this. So those ones, the U.S. has said that that's their position.
But does it matter that the man at the center has denied it?
Well, it does. That's why we need to do our own investigation. But it tells you that that money did enter our economy. They've been able to drill down to a certain amount. What the man has said is that he did not make any payment. It does not take away the fact that certain monies were paid. He's trying to say, I was not involved in these payments. But the U.S. has made a finding that these monies got into the Ghanaian system and was used to pay certain groups of people. So we need to do a full-blown investigation and have clarity as to who was involved. And I'm just saying that whatever the case is, you are sure that when companies like this engage and they dole out money, they recoup that money through whatever services that they are to provide.
All right, Mr. Senanu, we thank you for your time. Let's also bring into the conversation Mr. Martin Pebble, who is a lawyer. Mr. Pebble, a lot of people have said, and then you may have heard Mr. Senanu there also make the points, following the resignation of the TOR MD, people have said it shouldn't end there. The president, this matter should be referred to the special prosecutor or to Shraj. What do you make of that?
Well, referring the matter to the special prosecutor shouldn't be a problem. But I have a different take on the approach. You see, as things stand now, we don't have any evidence against him. It's the Americans who have. So even if they refer to, it shouldn't be that if the matter goes to a special prosecutor, immediately he's starting investigation. No. The Americans are ahead of us. They themselves, and I'd like to read to the question to Mr. Senanu. As of now, they are allegations, not yet proven in a court of law. So it appears to me that our first step would be to contact the Citizens Elections to find out, under the Mutual Legal Assistance Act of the law, whether they are willing to give us the evidence they have as now, or they are rather going to use it first before they will give us. So that is what really informs what decision we are taking as to whether we are investigating now or we will abide the completion of the court action in America. You see, because we have to be very careful. Actually saying, commence investigation. That's not difficult. With the stroke of a pen, the president can decide to comment. But the question is, when are you going to finish? What outcomes are you taking now? Right now, the evidence is somewhere. So why don't we first of all go find out from that person, as I stated earlier, whether he will give us now or we would rather ask us to wait for him to finish using it. Because don't forget, they spent their taxpayers' money in conducting all these investigations and everything. And even when it comes to the question is that do they want their legislative to start there and ask when they have not finished? These are very technical matters. So you can take it from that answer first, find out to what extent we can get assistance, and then that will inform us as to what we have to say.
Mr. Pebble, I've heard a lot of people make reference to the Airbus matter. As a legal practitioner, technically, what would be the difference between this latest issue and the Airbus, and referencing it to the special prosecutor?
Yes, you made it very clear. You made it clear that the Airbus matter, that was the matter.
Mr. Pebble, I seem to be losing you. If you could just reposition yourself.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Pebu.
Is it better?
It is.
So I mentioned that you had indicated that in the Airbus matter, you see that we're dealing with the judgments of the court. The UK authorities were largely done. Of course, they are investigating other persons, but at least for our purposes, in terms of government officer one and all these ones, those we can get help. They are done to a large extent. But this one, the Americans have not yet finished the court case. So we would need to find out what they are willing to give us at this stage. And that is what is formal.
When you say what they are willing to give us, what will that constitute?
Sorry, please say that again.
I wanted you to give us a bit of clarity on what they are willing to give us. You said at this time we should be looking at collaborating and see what they are willing to give us before we can open investigation.
Yes, so that's why I said that the Americans have the evidence. They are the ones who did follow the money. They traced the money and got to where they are. And they think that there is evidence of a crime. So in terms of what witnesses, we don't know. In terms of the bank account, remember they said the money was wired to the New York bank account of Mr. Berko, then from there transferred to Ghana. All those things. We don't have those details. So because they are ahead of us, we must necessarily find out from them. You shouldn't reinvent the wheel, because don't forget that the problem we are facing with the Special Prosecutor's Office is that you know that it's a new office, so it's been taking a while for them to get off the block. So I'm very concerned that we shouldn't just go down the case there and then the tally will increase, the count. You say, yes, this is case number XYZ. We haven't seen any results yet. Then you see that then there's pressure mounted on the office. We haven't seen the family do anything and all that. No. So let's be very tactical. Before we say the case is being investigated, we must first be sure what resources we are getting. When I say resources, what kind of evidence we are getting from the Americans to be able to prosecute here, or if we are also going to do a civil case, we will do. So we must first find that out. Otherwise, just then down the case there, if it's announced to the public that he's investigating, then, as I mentioned earlier, we will start putting pressure and all that. Don't forget that a number of cases have been taken to that office. We are yet to see results. Remember the Mufina Alfred Obey, the boss matter. That's case number 1. Case number 1 has not come out. It's been almost a year and a half now or so. Case number 1, we've not seen prosecution, we've not seen the results. There's case number 2, and so many others. We haven't had the results. So let's be very tactful as the people. I know probably the moment we hear something, so, oh yes, send it for investigation. Yes, we can do. But to what end? So let's be tactful this time.
All right.
Let's make inquiries, and then let's come out that, okay, we can now or wait, so that we know clearly where the case lies, whether there's an ongoing investigation or we are waiting for the Americans to finish before we start.
Okay.
Or whichever way.
All right. Mr. Martin Pebu, we'll leave it here. Thank you very much for your insights in this matter. We will see how this actually goes forward. For now, the presidency has acknowledged receipts of that resignation and has wished the former MD now well in his future endeavors. We see how this goes.